Have you noticed that 2026 has not exactly been subtle so far, and that ever since the firehorse energy took over, life has felt faster, hotter, more impatient, more exposed, and somehow a lot less forgiving than people expected when they first heard this was supposed to be a year of movement and momentum, because that is really the starting point for this whole conversation. The year did not ease its way in. It arrived with pressure, it arrived with speed. It arrived with that very firehorse feeling of wanting action now, wanting movement now, wanting visibility now, wanting results now, and not always caring whether the structure underneath was actually ready for that kind of pace. Exhale sharply. Now, let me ask you two simple questions before we go further. Have you felt since the start of 2026 that things have been moving too quickly for people to think properly? Almost like everybody is reacting faster than they are reflecting. And if that is true, then what do you think happens when the year's fire suddenly meets a very different kind of force in April? Not a weaker force, but a force that governs, redirects, and makes people stop long enough to realize where all this speed was actually taking them. Stay with me until the end of this video for three reasons. Because first, I'm going to show you why April 2026 feels like such a major shift inside an already intense year. Second, I'm going to walk you through what the Water Dragon month does to the wider emotional and strategic atmosphere. And third, I'm going to show you what this reset means for each zodiac sign in a way that actually feels useful instead of sounding like decorative fortune cookie content. And before we go any deeper, if conversations like this help you make sense of the bigger energetic shifts and stop feeling like the year is just happening to you, click like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who has already been saying 2026 feels like a lot, because that instinct is not wrong. Now, let's reset the frame properly. 2026 is the Firehorse year, and Firehorse years do not really believe in gentle introductions. The horse wants movement, speed, freedom, action, and momentum. Fire makes all of that louder, hotter, more visible, and more emotionally charged. So when you combine those two, the result is not a calm, measured year where everyone carefully reviews their options over tea and polite conversation. The result is acceleration. People want to move. People feel pressure to move. Systems feel pressure to move. Markets, leadership, business, relationships, personal decisions, everything starts carrying that don't wait too long quality. And that is exactly why so many people have felt slightly overwhelmed already. Because fire can be productive, but unmanaged fire is exhausting. It pushes people into action before clarity arrives. It amplifies confidence in some people and panic in others. It rewards decisiveness, yes, but it also increases the cost of emotional mistakes. That is why the firehorse is exciting and dangerous at the same time. It creates momentum, but not always wisdom. Now, this is where April becomes very interesting, because on the 5th of April 2026, the monthly pillar shifts into Ren Chen, the Yang Water Dragon month. That is not a small change. That is not just another month. It is a major energetic correction inside the year. Why? Because water controls fire. Now, when people hear that, they often imagine a dramatic battle, as if water arrives to put out the year and ruin everyone's plans. That is too simplistic and honestly not very helpful. What is really happening is more intelligent than that. The Water Dragon month does not erase the Firehorse year, it governs it. It cools excess heat. It slows impulsive movement just enough to make people think. It turns blind momentum into something that can become strategic if handled properly. That is why I call April a reset. Not because the year stops, because the year matures. Up to this point, many people will have been moving on urgency, emotion, reaction, ambition, and speed. In April, water enters and starts asking more difficult questions. Where exactly are you going? Why are you rushing? What are you building? Which of your actions are truly aligned and which ones are simply responses to heat? The dragon adds another layer to this, because dragon is not weak water. Dragon carries storage, depth, complexity, and a kind of internal force that is less obvious than the horse, but in many ways more consequential. So April is not a sleepy month. It is a month of intelligent redirection. That is why some people will experience it as relief, while others will experience it as frustration. If you have been overheating, April may feel like a blessing. If you have been enjoying the speed and not questioning it, April may feel like resistance. But either way, it changes the tone. Now, if you look at this through a Chinese metaphysics lens, the interaction is quite revealing. Fire wants expression, movement, exposure, and immediate consequence. Water wants flow, thought, adaptation, intelligence, and timing. So when water comes into a fire year, the environment begins correcting access. This can show up in the markets through cooling speculative behavior, more caution around overextended moves, and a return to quality over pure excitement. It can show up in business through people realizing that speed without structure has costs. It can show up in personal life through exhaustion, finally forcing reflection. This is why April matters so much. It does not just bring a new mood, it asks for a new relationship with the whole year. Now let's go sign by sign, but let's do it like real human beings, because people do not live life in bullet points even though the internet keeps trying to make them. Let's start with the rat. If you are a rat, especially if this firehorse year has already felt like too much movement, too much noise, too much pressure, and too little emotional breathing room, then April may feel like the first month in a while that your system can actually hear itself. Think again. Rat is naturally a water sign, so this incoming water energy supports your mind, your instinct, your ability to read undercurrents, and your strategic nature. The firehorse year has likely been forcing you to react to environments that do not move in your preferred way. April gives you some of your natural intelligence back. Things start making more sense. You stop feeling as if you are defending yourself against speed all the time and start seeing where the actual openings are. This is not the month to panic or rush. This is the month to read carefully, plan properly, and use your natural advantage, which is not brute force but timing. If you are an ox, the year has probably felt less like inspiration and more like people around you losing their mind in public while you quietly try to keep the floor from collapsing. Firehorse energy is not naturally restful for the ox because the pace feels erratic and the emotional charge of the year can irritate your preference for steadiness. But April helps. The dragon month gives a stronger earth support through the branch, and the water on top helps cool some of the unnecessary pressure. For ox people, this is a month to stabilize, review, and rebuild confidence in the direction you are taking. You do not need dramatic moves, you need solid adjustments. The year does not stop being intense, but April gives you a chance to stand on firmer ground. Now the tiger. For tigers, the firehorse year can feel exciting because there is natural movement and expansion in the atmosphere, but the risk is always overextension. Tigers often do well when the year encourages courage and action, but courage without correction can become impatience. That is why April is useful for you. Water nourishes wood, and tiger is wood in nature, so this water dragon month can actually become a very strong planning and repositioning period for you. Your ideas sharpen, your judgment improves. You stop forcing so much and start seeing where the energy genuinely wants to move. If you use April properly, you do not lose momentum. You refine it. For the rabbit, the difference may feel even more obvious emotionally. The firehorse year can feel too exposed, too rushed, too socially noisy, too sharp. Rabbit generally prefers smoother emotional environments, and fire-heavy timing can make everything feel a bit louder than necessary. April's water helps soothe that. It nourishes your wood, gives you more emotional clarity, and supports more intelligent decision making in relationships, work, and personal direction. For rabbits, this is a month to stop trying to keep up with everybody else's speed and start listening to your own pace. What looks like slowing down may actually be you getting back in alignment. Now for the dragon, April is your own month, and that always matters. When your own animal sign shows up in the month, life often becomes more personal, more visible, more charged, and more revealing. With Ren Chan, the young water dragon arrives with both force and depth. So for dragons, this is not just a random boost, it is a mirror. You are being shown more clearly where your real power sits and where you have been wasting it. The water element helps strategy, thought, and adaptability. The dragon branch strengthens presence, authority, and consequence. This can be a strong month for leadership, but only if you do not turn it into ego theater. The right move is not to become louder, it is to become clearer. For the snake, April is interesting because snake and fire generally have a natural relationship with intensity. But here, the water month comes in to control and temper that fire. If you are a snake, especially if you have been moving confidently through the first part of 2026, April may feel like a sudden request from the universe to stop showing off and start thinking more deeply. That is not an insult, that is support. Snakes are actually very good at strategic repositioning when they stop reacting to surface heat. So if the month feels slower or slightly more resistant than expected, do not read that as punishment. Read it as correction. It is the difference between being busy and being effective. For the horse, this is your year. So naturally, you have been feeling the raw energy more directly than most. That can feel exhilarating, but it can also feel tiring in ways you may not want to admit. When April comes in with the water dragon, it does something very important for horse people. It asks whether all this movement is actually going somewhere worthwhile. You may feel a bit checked, you may feel slight frustration, slight slowdown, or a sense that not everything is responding as quickly as before. Good, that is useful, because the greatest danger for the horse in a horse year is not lack of movement, it is burning too much energy without enough strategic direction. April gives you a chance to stop running on pure instinct and start making smarter choices about where that strength should actually go. Now, the goat. If you are a goat, this year may have felt socially or emotionally tiring because the firehorse environment can be too hard-edged, too competitive, or too lacking in softness. Goat energy often does better in atmospheres where harmony and steadiness can be rebuilt, and April helps with that. The Water Dragon month gives you a chance to recover your center, not by disappearing, but by becoming emotionally clearer and more selective. This is a good month for sorting relationships, re-evaluating commitments, and choosing where you genuinely feel supported. It is not a good month for trying to prove something through force. For the monkey, April can be one of the more interesting shifts of the year because monkey and dragon have strong affinity. That means what felt like scattered opportunity under the firehorse year can begin organizing itself more clearly. The water dragon month helps intelligence, networking, timing, and strategic movement, all of which suit the monkey extremely well. If you are a monkey, April is not the month to become distracted by 10 shiny opportunities. It is the month to spot the one or two that actually connect into something bigger. This is where your natural cleverness becomes useful rather than merely entertaining. The rooster also benefits from the dragon month because dragon and rooster carry a useful connection. For roosters, the first part of 2026 may have felt demanding because fire increases exposure, and when exposure rises, perfectionists feel the pressure quickly. April helps by making the environment more mentally workable. The water cools the emotional intensity, and the dragon supports behind the scenes alignment. This can become a month where the right support appears, the right conversation matters more than the loudest one, and where a calmer, more measured strategy gets better results than trying to push your way through by force. For the dog, this month can feel more confronting because dragon and dog clash directly. Now, clash does not always mean disaster. It means movement, pressure, change, confrontation with something that can no longer stay hidden. If you are a dog, April may force a deeper review of direction, identity, commitments, or emotional patterns that have been left unattended. That may not feel comfortable, but it can be extremely useful if you stop treating discomfort as failure. The Firehorse year may have been trying to push you into action, but the Water Dragon month asks whether the action actually reflects who you are now. That is a very different question, And finally, the pig. For the pig, April can feel like a return to something more natural. The firehorse year may have felt draining, overstimulating, and slightly too loud for your system, especially emotionally. But water arriving in the month helps you regain inner coherence. It strengthens intuition, supports reflection, and allows you to think from a deeper place rather than just coping with pace. For pig people, April is not just a recovery month, it is a wisdom month. What you understand about your direction during this period can become more valuable than what you achieve externally right away. Now, if this sign by sign breakdown is landing for you, click like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who needs to stop seeing 2026 as one long emotional blur and start understanding the shifts inside the year. So let me bring this home. Why does the water dragon change everything in April 2026? Because it introduces intelligence into a year already full of energy. It introduces reflection into a year already full of movement. It introduces containment into a year already full of heat. And that matters because the real danger of the fire horse year was never only speed. It was speed without enough correction. April gives us that correction, not by killing momentum, but by disciplining it. Not by stopping progress, but by asking whether the progress has direction. Not by punishing action, but by refining action into something more sustainable and more strategically useful. That is why this month is a gift, a real one. The first part of 2026 may have been asking, can you move? April asks a better question. Can you move wisely? That is the reset, that is the maturity point, that is why Water Dragon matters. And if you use it properly, April can become the month that saves you from wasting the rest of the year on heat, hurry, and emotional overreaction. If this perspective gave you a clearer way to understand the shift into April 2026, click like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs this reset explained in a way that actually makes sense. And if you want deeper conversations about Chinese metaphysics, zodiac timing, period 9, and how to navigate the major energetic shifts of 2026 with more clarity and less confusion, join the Destiny Architect Telegram chat, where we continue these discussions with people who want timing, not noise. I'll see you there.